Live here, February 1st. Happy February, everyone. This is Hannibal from the HannibalTV.com with my daily news update. And I'm only reading all about this today, so sorry if I'm a little late on this news. But YouTube superstar, I think he has something like 20 million subscribers, Logan Paul, who had 1.2 million pay-per-view buy rates for his boxing match this past summer against another YouTuber, said he would actually destroy CM Punk, and he knows he would beat him in an MMA fight. He told this to TMZ, and TMZ approached CM Punk, I think it was last week, and CM Punk responded that he would not take that fight. Of course, Logan Paul is now apparently talking to Bellator about possibly getting a fight in Bellator. Logan Paul lost his boxing match, and CM Punk lost both of his MMA matches. The second guy that CM Punk lost to in MMA was Mike Jackson, who only ever beat CM Punk. He's 1-1 and hasn't fought since the CM Punk fight, which was a year and a half or more ago. So it's too bad. That would have been an interesting fight, CM Punk against Logan Paul. I guess the publicity they would get for that would be huge. It would be the biggest fight of CM Punk's career, bigger than any wrestling match he ever had. But I guess he's just afraid he would lose to Logan Paul, who's just basically a 24-year-old YouTuber. So I understand the risk there. I mentioned earlier that Bret Hart announced he's having surgery to remove a basal cell carcinoma, form of skin cancer. Just to be clear, guys, that surgery, very familiar with it. They basically just cut the small bit of skin cancer off of you. People get patches of those. I know a lot of people who have had them, including other people in the wrestling industry. They just didn't say they have it, so I won't mention their names. But it's a small process. Superstar Billy Graham has a more serious amount of skin cancer. He's literally covered in the skin cancer patches. He has more than they'll take off, from what I could tell. At least last year when I interviewed him, it was all over his shins. He said he had it all over his back. That's just one of the health issues he has. He does have a GoFundMe going. Someone commented that I'm biased towards Superstar Billy Graham. Well, I do think Superstar Billy Graham is one of the greatest talkers of all time and one of the greatest draws all time in the wrestling industry, and I'm honored that he's been a friend and mentor to me. And the biggest thing he ever did to me was in Canada, I think about 8 years ago now. They were telling me there was no immediate cure for my hepatitis C treatment, that I would have to wait about this time until about now, which they were right. There are a lot easier cures now to get my hepatitis C treatment. Billy Graham heard about this. I went down to Phoenix to Billy Graham's personal doctor that was dealing with his hepatitis C, and they got me on an experimental treatment that I was able to get hooked up through Canada that cured me of the disease. So Billy Graham is directly responsible for me being cured of the disease faster. And every day that disease is in you, it actually replicates and destroys your liver more. So the faster you can get it out, the better. So yes, I am always going to be biased to him, and he's a great person, wonderful person. Don't take his wrestling character personally or his Facebook posts, because sometimes he just likes to stir things up. But he's a great guy. So yes, I am biased to him. As for Bret Hart, some people are saying I'm biased against Bret Hart. I am not. I'm sorry that I wasn't a fan of his. Probably the only thing that Kevin Owens and I could agree on is we both weren't fans of Bret Hart. And as far as him commenting about Kevin Sullivan having a GHB-induced seizure in his book, there's numerous things in his book that are not true. He always claims he never hurt wrestlers. Ask Jinder Mahal about the injuries that he would give Bad News Allen. Maybe nothing serious. Dynamite Kid would stiff him right back. Jake the Snake tells that story on my channel. He would give small injuries, but yes, you know what? It is great. He wrestled as long as he did. Never gave a serious injury to anyone. And I didn't have anywhere near the matches he's had. But despite people like apparently Kevin Owens allegedly has loved to spread around that I am a dangerous wrestler, I never hurt anyone in the wrestling ring. So I am proud of that too. So the Hart training does work. It's realistic, but you're not sending people to the hospitals. Apparently, the executives, George Barrios and the girl that WWE fired, helped get the Fox deal together. Related to what I reported in my Wrestling Observer review this week, WWE is doing way, way less house shows. I think there's maybe a handful at most next month from what I've read. They're cutting way back. So far, it's not 3 or 4 a week. Or actually, if you count both brands, I guess it's a lot more than that, probably 6 house shows a week during the old schedule and 2 TV tapings. So, but apparently NXT is actually doing more events than either the Raw or SmackDown brand. Now, of course, they do smaller house shows, but they are apparently on a flat salary. They don't get extra money anytime they compete on a house show like in WWE. This is just an example from what I heard. Madison Square Garden, Hulk Hogan would get like 25 grand for the main event for a night on a house show, and the opening match guy might get $500. So you get a percentage of the gate according to where you are on the card. Hogan's opponent might get 10,000. If you go to a smaller venue, a 5,000 seat venue like Hull, Quebec, where they used to go in the 90s, and I guess maybe they'd get 1,000 people or so in Hull, Quebec, when they would go there when Bret Hart was champion and when Diesel was champion with the low drawing years, as much as I like Diesel, they'd get 1,000 people. So that's where you hear the years from people like Duke the Dumpster and others have said it. You were hardly making any some years, because in that case, you might have 1,000 or 1,200 people being paid in Canadian, like the gate is Canadian, which, for instance, right now, $1.36 Canadian is $1 American. So imagine 1,200 people divided by 7 or 8 matches, maybe 9 matches on a big card. That doesn't add up to as much, but it's still bonus. You have a downside guarantee, a flat salary. So let's say a low flat salary for a main roster guy is $100,000. Then every time he wrestles, he gets more. So that's why less house shows, even though they were being canceled and losing money, could mean less money for some of the wrestlers. Also, they sell merchandise at those house shows as well. In other news, CMLL had a show January 24th at Arena Mexico that reportedly drew 16,000 fans, which is more than WWE has drawn for a TV taping for a long time. They did outdraw that for the Royal Rumble, but no recent, to my knowledge, that I've read, and I've read the results for a long time, nothing in the past few years has had 16,000 fans for a taping that I'm aware of. So that's pretty good that they drew that for a CMLL. Apparently they draw better than AAA from what I've read. During an appearance on Jim Rome's radio show, Dana White said that Masvidal will challenge welterweight champion Kamaru Usman in July in Las Vegas. So that means that very likely Masvidal versus McGregor will not happen until after that fight, if it happens. It's believed a good opponent for McGregor, for his next opponent, could be Nick Diaz. Andrew, why is Logan relevant? To answer a few fan questions before I finish up. I don't know. I know nothing about him other than he's extremely popular. Orlo Myers, why can't CMLL get a US TV deal and compete with WWE? I'm no Mexico wrestling expert, but that's a good question for me to ask someone who is. I will keep that in the vault up here. Clark Haynes says that I know and love the business. Thank you. I'll give you that sign as well. I cheers you, but I already drank all my post-workout drink here, and it's not alcohol. Biggs21 says, I thought superstar Billy Graham died back in the 80s. No, he's actually almost as old as Bruno Sammartino was when he passed away, for the people that like to bash superstar Billy Graham as like a drug addict. Well, he really didn't do drugs that long, he did steroids for a long time, but the only actual street drugs that I've ever heard him do are taking speed here and there, which was a common thing. You could actually get it, the doctor's prescribed version. I mean, I've even heard Ricky Steamboat say he would pop speed before a match on a shoot interview. I've heard him say that. So if you look at, like, if Billy Graham actually did that, he probably didn't do that for very long. And I know he's been totally clean since the early 90s. And I know he's like had a glass of wine here and there in the past, but he's never been a partier. You never hear any stories of Billy Graham out at bars. He's been married to Valerie for decades. He was not a womanizer. He's a pretty good guy. Diego Sanchez was suspended for 3 months for testing positive for Osterin and S23, which I guess are banned substances, but those were found in supplements he took, so they were accidental. So his suspension has been changed to 3 months rather than 2 years, and he's already served that 3 months. Speaking of Conor McGregor, UFC 246 in Las Vegas from the T-Mobile Arena had a sellout of 19,040 fans with an $11 million gate, one of the highest gates in Las Vegas MMA history. Now, both McGregor and the Cowboy took home more than this, but McGregor's reported earnings were $3,050,000 for winning, and that also the $50,000 extra was for bonus, I believe, one of the knockouts of the night or something. And Cerrone got $200,000, but it's important to note that there's other revenue streams coming to them other than just that. And some say that might be low for the Cowboy. However, there is other revenue coming in, and that was a huge, huge fight. Got tons of publicity. He'll be able to be a high-paid fighter for the remainder of his career and probably have name value as an instructor after that if he wants, touring around giving seminars or speeches. So he's pretty much set, and he was already rich. I saw some of his training videos, and I've seen his house. He's done very well for himself. Holly Holm beat Raquel Pennington, and Holm was paid $200,000, with Pennington getting $63,000. So that's all for my news. I'll answer some of your questions. MC says Hangman Page's character development in AEW has been great. You're not the only person I've heard say that. Necron99, aka Sammy Boy, still would like to see Sanchez and Lieben fight again. I think Lieben can only be sanctioned in certain states, which is why, by the way, I did an interview with him here on the Hannibal TV, but he was doing bare knuckle because they go to states like Wyoming that aren't very sanctioned, don't have heavily sanctioned. So I don't think Lieben, because he had some sort of heart condition, I believe, could actually be sanctioned, from what I understand, in normal MMA anymore. Will Rick Martel go into the Hall of Fame this year? The Wrestling Knowledge says, I highly doubt it, just because he's not talked very much about anymore and doesn't really want anything to do with wrestling. I'm sure they'll probably put him in one of these days, but no. All right, last comment. Jon Moxley will take the title from Jericho at Revolution. Someone is predicting anything is possible. I know Jericho is the company's supposed top heel right now, as my dog with the poison sign is trying to lick me. But he's being cheered. He's heavily cheered. People sing his theme song. So to me, he's really over, but maybe he should be a babyface if he's being cheered that much. Because that's not a real heel to me. I know it's different in 2020, but there still could be legitimate heels in this industry.